Hello everyone, Benjamin Lindsay here, Associate Editor at Backstage, and we're very lucky to be joined today by Mr. Michael Emerson. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and if this room looks different to you guys, this is because going into the new year we gave our green room, our studio, a little facelift. So this is where we'll be hosting these Backstage Lives week to week from here on out, and you are lucky enough to be our first guest. So,
I approve. It's a peaceful shade of deep forest green,
right.
I would call it.
Nice and soothing, right?
Yeah.
Well, you of course are in town to talk about Arrow, which you're in episode 3 out of your 7
have aired.
Episodes. Yes.
Yeah, so there's more to come. And
more to come.
There's a lot more to come.
Looking forward to that. And then you have Mozart in the Jungle coming out next month.
I do.
Streaming on Amazon.
I do. That's a fun and whimsical show.
Yeah. So I'm happy to see that you've stayed busy since Burst of Interest. That you had 2 huge network shows back to back.
Yeah.
And now you can.
And that was kind of a lot. So
right.
I've appreciated being sort of semi-employed lately and getting a chance to pick and choose and bounce around and have more fun as a character actor doing little bits and pieces of things on a lot of different shows. So
that was kind of a conscious decision. You're like, okay, I did 2 network shows. That's 22 episode installments. Let's take a break for a little bit.
I don't know if it was conscious or subconscious, but I did notice that I would recoil anytime anybody talked about, a heavy network schedule again. So I think it's going to be a while before I could face a thing like that.
Not bad. Well, tell us about your 7-episode arc on Arrow. Here you are playing another villain, which I assume at this point that must be a lot of fun for you. You're diving into these characters often enough.
It is fun. I enjoy playing a villain, or someone that the audience thinks is villainous.
Right.
But then they usually, and in this case it happens again, they usually turn out to be a little more nuanced and a little more human than anyone gave them credit for to begin with. There's something about me that's a little off-putting, I think, on first meeting. But then people warm up to
there you go.
As we go along. But it's a good show. Arrow is a good show. Part of what pleased me about taking this job was that it was something that my 11-year-old nephew got very excited about.
Okay.
Oh my God, Uncle Michael, I watched that show.
Is that the first time that's happened then?
Yeah, I think so, because usually I'm on something a little grown-up or boring for his taste. So I thought, this is cool. This is kind of fun
to could be fun.
Be on something that has a young audience.
Right. Well, in terms of these characters that you can draw the nuances, even if at face value they're a little villainous, is that inherently in the writing, or is that something that you personally like to bring to the role?
I suppose it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, Arrow is a superhero show, and it's based on comic books, so it's, they're not obliged to be as nuanced as maybe some other kinds of shows might be, because those lines of good and evil are more plainly divided in that universe. But still, there's room to finesse the reading of the lines, and you can have little twitches and glimmers of tenderness.
Right. So in terms of that, is that a matter of you kind of deep diving script analysis? You're kind of analyzing the psyche of this guy, or how is it that you find those nuances? I guess is what I mean to ask.
Well, you're making it sound like a serious undertaking of work, which I don't really do, but I'm happy to have someone like you tell the world that I did. No, I mean, sure, I study the script just like I would for anything else. But I think I've always studied even the TV scripts I look at or perform. I study them the way I would a stage piece. I try to dig down and crack it open and figure out not just what the character is like or what he thinks or how he reacts or what his goals are, but also I'm so attached to the sound of the human voice and to language that I sometimes try to look at it musically.
Okay.
I'm looking for the instrument that this character uses to speak with.
Right.
Things like that. I know that sounds a little abstract, but for me it tends to work out.
Yeah, and you have an MFA in acting, is that right? So I feel like these are things that you're delving into as a student, or at least at one time did. Yeah.
It's true, we did. I know. I make fun of it, but we studied the hard old plays when I was in grad school. The Greeks and the Renaissance plays and Shakespeare, God help us, and Restoration comedy, and so those pose big language challenges, even though they're written ostensibly in English. There's still they're an unusual sounding language to the contemporary ear, so we're used to doing a little more work
Right, certainly.
To interpret and, in a way, translate or help illustrate for the audience.
Yeah, and that's a skill set that has a through line up to today, even with series like Lost or with Person of Interest.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a magazine illustrator for many years before I became an actor, and I used to think, oh God, all those wasted years. But now I think it's all just one big enterprise of illustrating.
Yeah,
I used to do it with colored pencils, and now I do it with, this voice and this set of limbs.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Now, are you familiar, I know that you are based in New York, you have your roots in theater. Are you familiar with Backstage and kind of what we're all about here? Yeah.
Oh yeah. When I moved to New York, I got Backstage every week.
There you go. Yeah.
Whether I borrowed it or stole it or whatever, because that was where when I began, I was not a union actor, so that was where you looked for auditions and also just the various features and profiles that the magazine has always had. And I think I've been interviewed for the print version over the years.
I'm sure.
Like when I was on Lost.
Yeah. Well, so you're familiar with our readership. All of us, just like you were at one point, are early career actors.
Sure.
So something that struck my interest is in reading up on your history. You went to school for theater, and then it wasn't until maybe 20 years later that you went to get your MFA. So were you kind of a auditioning working actor in that in between time, or how is it that you kind of fell into it in the long run?
Well, I got an undergraduate degree in the theater from a small Midwestern college, and then I moved to New York City, which probably wasn't a great idea because it kind of knocked the wind out of me. And I've said this before, but I had no idea how to begin to be a working actor in New York. And by the time I got a roof over my head and a day job to pay for groceries, I sort of let that dream go. But it was always at the back of my mind.
Yeah.
And then 12 or 14 years later, there was some... And I became a magazine illustrator. And I did that happily for many years. But then there was some upheaval in my life, and I was in a new part of the country, bridges burnt. And I felt like I had to start over, and I thought, well, if I must start over, I should probably do the thing that I originally set out to do.
Right.
So I started doing community theater, and then branched out to doing regional theater. Eventually had to make a choice about where to move on to. Would I go back to New York, which had not been that kind to me in the early days, or should I go to a conservatory program like they had at one time at Alabama Shakespeare Festival? I knew people that had gone through that program, and I envied their classical training and the work they did on classical verse plays, and I thought that seems like a good life to me.
Yeah.
With no thought about the world of the camera or the world of the coasts.
Right. So the ideal at that time, you kind of envisioned a future in theater. Was TV work even on the...
I figured I would be a regional repertory player for the rest of my life and play all these great roles.
Yeah. But then, of course, we know you from various guest stints on TV as so many theater actors. We'll see them pop up in kind of the procedurals as a guest actor.
Yeah.
But something you said, I believe it was in an interview with David Letterman that I watched, and you said that Lost was a character actor's dream because you kind of proved yourself an invaluable asset to be this kind of support player who ends up kind of
was that
unraveling into what we know today as your character. But
because we take loads of these small parts, often interesting but possibly one-off, or if you're lucky, a 2 or 3 episode arc, but if you can play it well enough, your dream could come true, and you could become a regular on that series if they like you well enough.
Yeah.
So I guess I passed that particular audition.
Right. Well, I was going to ask. I know we're kind of dealing with intangibles here in the craft of acting, but what advice do you have for actors to, with their few days on set, kind of prove themselves to be an invaluable asset?
Just be quiet and keep your head down. Know your lines. Come on time. Be a problem solver. No reason to be a beggar or beholden to anybody. If you got a job at all, you got it the hard way. So take pride in that and be ready to be flexible. take direction, turn on a dime, completely change how you're playing the scene if they want you to. It's just acting.
Yeah.
Do all of that, and you'll make friends, and some of those friends will employ you.
Yeah, there you go. Make other people's job easier.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing I harp on, which is, sometimes acting can be a self-defeating psychological enterprise. You know, if we feel like we're desperate, if we feel like we're beggars at the door, we come hat in hand, hoping, praying that someone will take pity on us and give us a job. And I think it would be so much better to feel like we're tradesmen. We have a set of tools. They may be better or worse tools, but bring those on in. Be there. It's like, what can I help you gentlemen with today? You know, oh, I see you have a kind of difficult text here, or you have a piece of dialogue that doesn't quite work. Well, let's see if I can help you solve that.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you come in, I think, as an equal, or at least in your own mind, I mean, we should all have manners and all, but come in as an equal and think of yourself as their collaborator. And I think it might go a little ways to allaying your jitters and your sense of desperation.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's easy in that, in an audition setting, for instance, to not immediately recognize your value, because you are kind of beholden to the people on the other side of the table.
Right. And you sit in a cramped waiting room with 10 other actors, half of them you recognize, and you know they're good, and you think, I should have stayed in bed this morning. But no, no, damn it, you're prepared. You are good enough, and people like you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure that you don't find yourself in an audition setting all that much anymore, but how is it that you typically prepared for an audition?
Well, over the course of 20 years, the pendulum swung back and forth. There were times when I thought I had to be completely off book and we're ready to give my opening night performance at the audition. And then I swung back to a more relaxed view of it, which is, certainly you've looked at the material and prepared it, but there's no reason to be off book. You're not getting points for being off book. Better to be on book and be flexible and be able to listen instead of being in a state of mental terror that you're going to forget half the words.
Right.
So just be there, be ready to stop, shift gears, play a different intention, whatever. Just be present, sane, and relaxed in the room. If you can. I know it's a tall order. It's hard to be relaxed under those circumstances, particularly if you want the role really badly. But it's worth it. I mean, it's kind of your life's work as an actor. One of the 2 or 3 things you have to do. Acting is kind of the least of them. It's that relaxation under audition circumstances that would be a great craft to cultivate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even if you find yourself in the right marketplace and you have the classical training and you have that foundation to fall back on, it might be worthwhile to take an audition technique class and to know how to kind of break that down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I also wanted to ask you about Mozart in the Jungle. I feel like that's a series that is just this quirky little oddity with a really devoted following. It's going into season 4 now. My understanding is that you're playing quite the eccentric. So what was your favorite thing about kind of joining the cast for season 4?
Oh, it's a role. It's a kind of role. When people ask me what do you want to play, I say I want to be in something that's period. I want to be in something that's outrageous. I want to have a funny voice or dialect or something. And this answers all my dream.
Checks all the boxes.
Categories as a character player who feels like he's had to really make things small for about a decade. So it's nice to bust out, wave my arms around, and be a little larger than life, kind of stage theatrical, if you will. And you're not supposed to be able to do that in front of the camera, but you can if you play your cards right, and if it's the right kind of character. So yeah, I play a character who's a mad millionaire who collects opera and classical music memorabilia, and he lives in a big old Addams Family mansion, and he dresses in 16th century clothes wherever he goes. Yeah,
so that really does check the boxes as far as you're wanting to do on camera.
Yeah, he has a crazy hairdo and a beard.
So that's the kind of role that you want to go for then. You're talking about how you're coming off these 2 huge network series maybe take a back seat and do the things that you want to do. That sounds like just a good time.
Yeah, it's nice, and it's nice to mix it up. You know, I always thought of myself as a funny guy. I was a funny-looking kid, and I played all the funny roles in school and at college as well. And most of my adult acting has been in comedies of one sort or another. So I don't know how I got to be so sinister
right.
and still and quiet.
Yeah. Well, you're good. You're good at it.
But that's also fun too. In a way, sometimes I do feel like I'm in a comedy in my own head, but everyone else is taking it terribly serious.
so you can let the comedy fly with something like Mozart. That's great.
And even if I play a frightening character, I always think my characters have some sense of humor. There's a twinkle in their eye.
Oh yeah.
They may be severing a limb of yours
right
while it's going on, but
yeah. No, that's part of the appeal.
Try to have fun.
Yeah, certainly. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit. Do you mind if we open to audience questions for the last few minutes? All right.
Here we go.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. This is, of course, Michael Emerson.
Are we live?
Yes, we are live right now. Yeah. Backstage Live. This is streaming on our Facebook page, and then kind of lives up there as a nice video interview afterwards. Let me see here. All right. How about Debbie Alter? That's so cool that you came back to acting after taking a break. Do you have any advice for someone who is nervous to get back into it?
If you love it, just do it. It doesn't have to become your living. I think we should do the things that we love to do, and I think you should, for anybody, whether they're young or old, I think it's a good idea to be patient with yourself and to repeat this mantra regularly. It is not a race. You're not competing with anyone to get to whatever it is.
Did it feel that way for you sometimes? Is that a mantra that you had to start living by?
By the time I finally found my way back to the stage, I had to give up on the idea of ever being a youthful sensation or anything like that. It was so far away and so impossible. That was a ship that had sailed long ago. So mine was going to be a different kind of career. And I would say to people, if you love to act and what if you got your break when you were 55? Could you wait that long? Could you stand it? I don't know.
Yeah, you got to know your limits in that sense, I guess, and you got to be in it for the right reasons.
I was 42 when I started to make my living as an actor.
And then you see actors like Ann Dowd this year. She breaks out with her Emmy win, but she didn't have her big break until 50, probably. I'm guessing in that age range, but yeah, you got to be in it for the right reasons and know if you're in it for the long haul, certainly.
Yeah, you really do have to love the process. You kind of have to learn to like auditioning, and you have to like rehearsal, I think.
Yeah.
Problem solving.
Yeah, exactly. How about, let's go with Alyssa Goldberg. Hello, Alyssa. Thanks for watching. Given all that you've accomplished in your acting career, is there anything else you'd like to do moving forward? Anything on your acting bucket list?
Well, I've never been one that had a list of particular roles I want to play, like Richard III or something like that. But I do look forward to growing into or aging into interesting older men's roles, and I do look forward to what always happens in my life, which is the best stuff comes completely out of left field, unexpected and unpredictable, and I like that. Who knows what that will be?
Right.
A medieval scientist or a deaf mute or an angel or it could be just about anything if the language is great.
Right. It comes back to the instrument, as you were saying.
Yeah.
I like that. How about David Mink? What was one of the most valuable things you learned during your time on Lost? I imagine that was a learning experience.
Well, that was the first time I ever did a long stretch of episodes on a TV show, so what you learn then is about how to pace your work on a given scene, to not give your best take the first take, because you don't want to use it all up by the time you get to your close-up. But also the business of, if you're going to be a TV actor, you have to learn to cope with fatigue and repetition. Those are the two things I think that are hardest about the camera world. I think it also is relevant to film work too, but that stuff is an adjustment you make.
And that actually goes hand in hand with Aaron Jameson's question here. You've done so much television work. What's your favorite part about working in that medium? I feel like you found footing in television work, but it comes with challenges. What's your favorite parts about it?
Yeah. I'm a person that likes precision. Even when I was a stage actor, I like that also, to be able to recreate the same things every night with differences that maybe only I was aware of. But for the camera, you have more variables. You have to coordinate even the smallest movements, like drinking a cup of tea or smoking a cigarette. You have to coordinate it with where the camera is. And you don't want to take the puff until the camera's, either right in front of you. You kind of map those things out in your head, and then it may take a number of takes for you to feel like, that one was perfect. Then you have helped to marry, you have been a problem solver, you have helped the director and writer to marry a piece of living action with a moving camera and sound recording. That can be pretty great.
Yeah, you're a problem solver, as you say.
It gets scientific.
Yeah.
In a way.
It's definitely a unique skill set. I mean, you're not worrying about where the lens is hitting you when you're doing theater work, of course.
No.
Yeah.
No, you're free from all of that. Yeah. But then you have other terrors.
Right.
When you're on stage.
Completely different monster, certainly. Let's see. We have a question here about the Lost finale. Do you mind if we chat about that for a second?
Sure.
Pamela Quinn, how do you feel about the Lost finale? It's one of the most controversial endings in TV history.
Yeah, I don't know why it's so controversial. I think it's a beautiful ending, and I think it's the only possible ending for that far-flung narrative. Every show, the way it's told, the kind of narrative it has, it determines its own ending. And Lost was a show that seemed to me to explode out from the center in all different directions for a whole lot of different characters and character narratives. And also it played around with time and space, dimensionality, all of that. So the only thing to do, if you're forced to wrap it up in a hurry, is to bring everything back into the center. And I think to come back to Jack, to his spiritual awakening, to his challenge, and to end it on a spiritual or esoteric note. And I thought they did well to be mindful of William Shakespeare, who at the end of his comedies always has all the appropriate pairings walk off into a happy hereafter. And that's what I think they did. That church or chapel space was the vestibule to the afterlife. And everybody found their mirror redeemer, and they walked off in pairs. Except Benjamin Linus.
Of course. I love that. I never would have immediately thought of that Shakespearean parallel, but you're right.
These are clever and well-read writers.
Yeah, exactly.
Damon and Carlton, great guys.
Yeah. Did you watch The Leftovers?
I've seen some of it.
Yes.
I'm still meaning to.
Yeah. Tune in when you get a chance, certainly. So final question here. We were actually chatting about your wife, Carrie Preston, before the cameras were rolling. You also had a little guest stint on her new series, Claws.
Yeah.
What was that like working with her?
Fun. Well, it's always fun to work with her. It's strange. Mm-hmm. It's strange because there you see, I woke up with her this morning, and,
right.
And here we are, and it's kind of weird and funny and embarrassing. But I didn't have a scene with her. That's always a little stranger. Mm. But that was another chance for me to bust out and play a wacko character thing with the beard and the shoulder-length hair and all of that. Mm-hmm. That was.
I imagine that wasn't natural.
that was my very own beard, not the hair. The hair was.
Got it. Okay.
and then, what could be better than to just be killed?
Yeah.
You have one good juicy scene, and then
so it's
your
fun.
neck is
In
broken.
and out. Yeah.
In and out.
Yeah. That must be a unique experience for you. I mean, it's not every day that two Emmy-winning television actors get to experience the life of an actor together.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's interesting to work with my wife because it makes me feel like I have to be an even better actor that day, because I have to not only relate to her character, but I have to tune out the she that I know.
Mm-hmm.
I have to somehow erase her wifeness, or we shared a bathroom this morning. That all I have to get rid of all of that and then replace it with some character thing.
Right.
I think she finds me a little distracted and serious when I'm working.
Yeah. That's part of the job, I guess. Yeah. Excellent, Michael. Well, it's been so great getting to know you a little bit. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It was fun.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back. Well, actually, we won't be back next week. It's the holiday break, so we'll see you in the new year. Happy holidays.